Well, good morning and welcome to the Redzone Power Hour. Well, just like in your plants, every minute matters. I'm Lawrence Green, Vice President here at Redzone Production Systems, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning by two industry leaders from the nutraceutical sector. James Hinkle, who is the Plant General Manager here at Capstone Nutrition up in Ogden, Utah. And dialing in via Zoom, we have Dwayne Chrest, who is the Global VP of Operations at Natrol, who are based in Chatsworth, California, just outside of Los Angeles. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, good to be here.
Well, excited for the conversation this morning. We've got a broad range of topics that we're going to cover, from everything from digital transformation, which is on the top of everyone's mind right now, through to shop floor engagement, culture change, productivity uplifts. So lots to talk about and how that's impacting on your respective facilities. But I guess before we dive straight in, it'd be really good for perhaps our listeners and our viewers to learn a little bit more about your companies. Perhaps you could share a little bit on some of the core values and the missions, the essence of your company, if you will. So, seeing as we're here in Ogden, James, perhaps you could kick us off.
My name's James Hinkle. I'm a plant general manager here at Capstone Nutrition, as you've stated. I've been with Capstone roughly 10 years, and in various roles, started as a process engineer and helped with some of the lean transformation out of the gate. And over the course of time have been able to take on some additional roles and whatnot. The transformation for Capstone has been exciting. We're a 300,000 square foot facility. We have a number of encapsulation, tableting, coating, weighing, blending, and packaging configurations throughout the facility that really truly help facilitate the contract manufacturing to meet our customers' needs. And so based on a lot of the variability that we have, there's been really a focus on how do we enhance and how do we bring a stronger offering to address that variability of what each customer wants, just a little bit different. And so moving towards a digital platform and moving more towards this productivity platform and uplift has been a huge opportunity for us to take us to the next level.
And as I mentioned, joining us from just outside of Los Angeles, Dwayne Chrest, who's a Global VP of Operations at Natrol. So I think many of our listeners, our viewers will know you guys for your melatonin, but I believe you do a little bit more than that down there in Chatsworth.
Now, my name is Dwayne Chrest. I'm the VP of Global Operations. And as you know, in Natrol, we have a very strong presence. We dominate the melatonin space, but we also have a few other pillars to our organization. We also work on not just sleep health, but also stress. We'll look at the beauty segment, we'll look at the brain segment, and we've added just a fifth pillar recently called the immune health pillar as well. So we're not necessarily a broad line provider of dietary supplements. We tend to be much more focused and agile in certain market segments. Our products are seen in about 65 different countries around the world, and we've been around for, as I mentioned earlier, about 40 years. This year is our 40th year in business.
As you walk the floor here and walk around the offices, the culture is just visible everywhere, and it seems like there's a few big themes or few key principles I've seen whatever room we've walked in. So could you share a little bit more on some of the core values that you guys live by here at Capstone?
Absolutely. We're firm believers of ultimately, as a vision, driving towards life improved. And so in order to do that, we ascribe to our cultural values, which we use the acronym GO BIG, which stands for give thanks, own it, be humble, inspire others, go for it. And then on top of that, we add two additional values of never give up and enjoy life. And so we're actually right now sitting in what we call the Go Big room, and this is kind of our Kaizen center. This is where we do a lot of our continuous improvement efforts. And so it's been really something that we've tried to infuse within the team is this concept of going big. And so that's been really fun actually within the application itself and the chat functions and features of driving towards that common language throughout the facility and continuously reiterating this concept of going big. But what we feel that really separates us from other contract manufacturers is our three pillars of trust, science, and performance. And that makes up kind of that pyramid that sits on top of our A in our logo. And so that's what really drives us, is that we strongly believe that we have a difference in trust, a difference in science, a difference in performance.
Thank you for that context. And that brings me really to our first topic of conversation that I want to dive deeper into, which is digital transformation. A term that's being thrown around a lot at the moment, and something that perhaps bigger companies have had a strategy for a while, but for many small to medium sized organizations, this is something that's just been thrown to the forefront of the conference room conversations, or of the management team's conversations. And what does it actually mean, and how do we go about transforming our organizations? And I saw a LinkedIn post last week, or a couple of weeks ago, that I think summed this up perfectly, which was, who led our digital transformation, our company's digital transformation? Was it A, the CEO, B, the CTO or CIO, or C, COVID-19? And slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it's something that we've been forced to look at a time where we're somewhat most disconnected from our teams because of social distancing and the other challenges introduced by COVID. We need different ways to be able to communicate with our workforces. It would be interesting for me to know, what does digital transformation mean to both your organizations? And when you started on this journey, what were you trying to achieve, and what big challenges were you trying to overcome?
Back in 2017, we were kind of at a point where we were going through a cultural transformation a little bit, and we were looking for something that would align with our vision, mission, and values, and with our pillars of trust, science, performance. And I had the opportunity, just an announcement come across an email for a Redzone event here locally in Utah, and I jumped at it to see what that would do, and actually found that a lot of it aligned to our newly founded vision, mission, and values. And like I spoke to earlier, it also gave us an opportunity to really look at driving this new common language throughout the floor in many different ways. And so going through the digital transformation was nice, because historically we had an operator standing in a white-walled room running a machine all by themselves, and this gave us reason to connect to them almost on a daily basis, but more importantly, let them know on an hourly and a minute-by-minute basis how they're doing and how they're performing. And so they had that visual indicator in front of them.
And I guess just if we were to go back prior to having all this data on the shop floor and available to everyone throughout the plant, how were you capturing things before? What did the world look like in terms of sort of trying to inform operators what type of job they were doing, if they were doing well or not? How was that captured?
It was typically an Excel spreadsheet that was pulled from documents from 24 to 48 hours ago, and it was rough, because by the time we got that score, it was too late, and we had already moved on to a different job. So to really give timely feedback to the team, it didn't make sense.
If you were to visualize what it looks like out on the shop floor now, the type of data that you're capturing and that is available to people on the floor,
we can show the team the score at any given minute on any given day throughout the facility. A lot of the times we're looking at the OEE, right? Are we hitting the standard that we're expecting? And so they know kind of what's expected on the standard, and they're, is it red or is it green? And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And at the end of the day, if they're getting red, they know that they're losing, and they know they need a huddle, and they need to make some adjustments. They need to rally the team, whether that's maintenance, whether that's logistics, or some other cross-functional member to bring them in. And being a contract manufacturer, we're typically going from part to part to part with a lot of changeovers in between. And so one of our biggest downtime reasons is changeovers. And so that's one thing that we certainly want to track and we want to understand in regards to, we believe the standard should be this, based on studies, based on Kaizen events, based on this, that, and the other. And what Redzone allows us to do is simply track to that.
For me, coming into Natrol, we use similar systems, Excel-driven, data-driven from the floors, and it was about 24 to 72 hours late, so you couldn't really act on that information. So really when I came in, I wanted to know where we're at today, and I would ask, I kind of drill them knowing that I'm going to install Redzone very quickly, coming to Natrol, but I would ask the questions and start out, what did you produce the last hour? What did you produce the last day, the last shift? And they would not be able to pull up those numbers quickly. And then what was the top downtime on the second shift or something like that. So I understood the need for the data being accessible and then the data to have that integrity, because at the end of the day, I was only tracking about 25% of my true downtime when you look at the pen and paper method or the Excel method. So looking at the transparency on the organization and also the accountability of where we're at, some of our core beliefs that we have, I needed to take that digital transformation through Redzone. And we also included the compliance piece as well. So in that role, everyone is now knowing where we are at any given time. The information and the communication was widespread. A public accountability is a powerful tool and if used properly. And from there, we spent less time searching for the data and tabulating the data, and we spend more time actually looking and interpreting that data. And instead of finding out what is wrong, now we're trying to decide what to do with this information and how can we improve the process. And a much quicker threshold, instead of waiting for 24 or 48 hours, we might have those conversations in 1, 2, or 3 hours from then. So that digital transformation for us was phenomenal, and we also added the compliance piece. And one of the neat things we've done just in December, where we got our USP designation on our first try, and we're also have gone paperless as well. And we just completed a few months ago our first remote audit from NSF, again done virtually, using the compliance tools that Redzone provided us. And again, we came off with bells and whistles. Our Edsel on our quality team, our director of quality, did an absolutely fantastic job in rallying the troops together and making sure we're audit ready. And again, we got the highest score possible, an A+. That's testament to the tools of Redzone, their compliance tool, and seeing that vision where we had in the beginning of we don't know where we were at. Now we know not just where we're at today, but where we're going tomorrow. So that was a huge benefit for us from the digital transformation. And again, we're still only scratching the surface, I believe.
Well, congratulations on the NSF certification that it sounds like you just went through. I know how much work goes into those things. And I think one of the advantages, again, of having a digital approach and having everything paperless, part of it is the ease that it introduces for you to provide data to different parties, whether that's auditing bodies or customers or whoever else it might be. So did it speed up that process?
It did. So as a branded product, and I came from contract manufacturing, I understand the differences, but in branded, we're building to a stock level. And so my inventory levels are one of the items which get a lot of scrutiny. So my ability to take products to market quicker, and in this case, I'm addressing a portion of the lead time aspect that is driven from the quality department. So that releasing of the paper batch records in the past may have taken 48 hours or maybe 24 if I'm rushing it, or it might take 5 or 6 days depending on the issue. Now with Redzone and the ability to do it on the iPad, my quality team can generally process the work order within about 10 minutes. So it's our biggest challenge is making sure the iPad's charged. So in that sense, it helped increase our velocity. And as we reduce these amounts of lead time incrementally, I'll be able later on to go back and address the inventory levels that I'm sure that a lot of people in the nutraceutical world are building inventory levels up very high to address with the anticipated spikes due to the pandemic. So as time goes on, we need to eventually bring down those levels of inventory, and these incremental wins, like paperless quality reports and batch records, help us immensely in the long-term gain of where we're going.
How has that changed in terms of ownership from people through the plant? How has ownership for performance changed, and an operator's perception of their role in the organisation? And James, perhaps you can kick us off on that one.
Yeah, so kind of hopping on back of this whole compliance module component, and in conjunction with our values, of one of them is own it. Our quality team, very similar to Dwayne's, was very much labor intensive, writing, double checking, possibility for transposition errors. And so through the compliance module, there's been a lot of components where we've been able to automate, take pictures, do different things to expedite and to get through what they need to get through in a given day. And so as the business has increased, they've been actually able to sustain the number of personnel on the shift and have been able to adjust kind of the workload by infusing more of these into different checks that are built within Redzone. So from a timing standpoint, they're able to get done what they need to throughout the day, and still what's been fun to watch and work with Andy Hell, who's our QTS manager. He's had his team many times step up and say, hey, I got this. And that's a constant mantra of that team alone as they're walking the floor and ensuring that we're pumping out a quality product is absolutely seeing that concept of owning it.
So James, in terms of the different departments, operations, maintenance, quality, the rest of the organisation, have you seen any fundamental shifts in the way the teams interact with each other?
Yeah, it's been a really unique journey because obviously you launch and you get into productivity and it's very much, operator based, production focused. And what's interesting to see is you start to see other teams get that envy, right? They want to be involved too. And so that happened as we moved into quality, and when we announced that we're doing the compliance module, the quality team was like pretty stoked to jump on board. And what's been cool is there's actually been a stronger unity now between our quality team and our production team. Now fast forward to where we're at from a maintenance standpoint, and I would like to think we have the traditional maintenance structure where, like you said earlier, sometimes maintenance and operations don't necessarily see eye to eye, and there were a lot of instances where a machine would break down and the operator would throw their hands in the air, they would leave the room, and a maintenance guy would have to come in and try and figure out what just happened. And the maintenance guys became kind of this, ego-driven, hey, I'm the firefighter, I'm walking in with the hose and the axe and I'm ready to go. And they would be the guys on call sitting in the shop waiting for something to happen. And so as we've gotten into the maintenance module and started to include them more into our DVSs, into our huddles, and do things differently with them, it's really starting to change a little bit of the paradigms in regards to how do we look at maintenance, and more specifically, how do we look at an operator, and what does an operator own, right? They should own that machine, and so there's been a lot of changes. We're still working through some of those. We're still early on in that maintenance journey, but it's been fun to watch, and we've had some specific maintenance guys in that have been really kind of the naysayers to begin with, and we're starting to see that glimmer where it's like, oh, this is what it's all about, and this is why the operators now own the machine, and they're helping with the TPMs and the senses and the care checks, and I can be more proactive. I've got more time to focus on these in-depth PMs, and so it's been fun to watch.
And what better testament to the culture change that you're trying to
Absolutely,
break down those silos. I know both of your businesses have seen an impact on demand during the COVID crisis. So perhaps could you share a little bit more on sort of what the impact has been, just in terms of volumes, etc. What you've seen. And some of the additional challenges you've been facing through this time?
So we've seen increases in sales upward at least of 50% in the growth. So one of the challenges we had was the ability to capitalize on that through our surge capacity. How quickly we're able and how agile are we able to develop those products, get them to market as quickly as possible. The challenges of that is meeting market expectations of our customers, making sure we have that on time, in full, perfect order, having those orders available at a cost-effective rate, so I'm not just throwing overtime at the problem, that I'm actually having engineering solutions or other process improvement solutions. And Redzone has been pivotal to help us to pivot and be agile enough to take advantage of the opportunities presented just recently.
Absolutely, I would certainly echo that as well. We've certainly seen an increase in demand of the product. We have a lot more customers that are coming towards us or to us, and obviously need to flood the market and fill the expectations, right? The demand that's needed.
How has the approaches that you've got in place put you in a position to handle some of these additional challenges that you've been presented with during the pandemic?
The interesting thing about the pandemic is that there's no playbook for it, and so the challenge of taking COVID, Redzone allows us to be virtually remote work ready before remote work became a catchphrase. And so, for example, not just also on whether it's your phone, your iPhone to see what's going on, or the iPads, you're able to be live 24/7, obviously with a plant. So that enables some of the remote work and whatnot. We've created also different triggers to encourage the break schedules, for example, because in our break room, we also physically distance within our break rooms as well. So again, using those controls in place and the triggers of Redzone takes us on that journey of the standard work program and allows us to do those things. Without the compliance piece and using triggers and the check sheets, it would be very difficult to handle the COVID and the pandemic challenges. We've been audited, or at least had a few visits from public health, and they've given us a gold star every time and said you're doing above and beyond of what we need to be doing from the minimum requirement.
Given that we've got different information from different teams, how have you guys sort of changed the way that people interact around the data, and how have you brought the different teams together to sort of drive greater collaboration?
Yeah, one of the key ways that that we were able to do this is we had to provide some structure for the team. And so one of the ways that we did that, and we worked with our Redzone coach at the time, and he gave us some guidance and kind of directed us towards some of the best things that he's seen out there. And that was creating this concept of a DVS, or the daily vital signs. And it's a huddle that we utilize that actually has an interweaving of multiple other huddles. So the line will huddle on a regular basis. If they see something wrong that's not lining up, then they'll come in and it'll get bubbled up to what we have as 2 DVS huddles a day, one at the beginning of shift and then one at shift change. And then throughout the day we have a couple other huddles. And then at the end of the week, if there's something that can't be killed off in those DVSs, we escalate that to a WVS, or a weekly vital sign, that has a slightly different membership or team that can help kill those issues in a timely manner. And that's the goal of it is we have great operators, but there's certain things about the equipment that they may not be able to address, and so we absolutely want to include a maintenance person, or if there's a logistics issue with warehouse, we want to get them involved. And so what we strive to do is get as many people cross-functionally to those DVSs as possible so that we can timely kill those issues and resolve the problem within a matter of minutes, hours, instead of days.
Dwayne, in terms of huddles, what involvement do you play, or Andy, the CEO down at Natrol, and the other senior leadership team? Is it just the shop floor team that are involved in these, or do you play a role as well?
I'll play a role sporadically in them to kind of, I call it my spot check, making sure they're following the forum and asking the questions. But initially, of course, you had to set the tone and make sure that everyone understands how important it is. But very quickly, I was able to delegate to some great team members we had on site, guys like Darwin and Jose and folks like that, who were able to have the huddles and then lead those huddles again. So they caught on to extremely quick. And I would answer that when the folks who are looking at Redzone as a solution, they say, well, we don't have quite enough resources, we run incredibly lean, etc. Again, it's a tough pill to swallow, but we all have limited resources, and there never is a right time, so to speak, right? We always have competing priorities. So Redzone is not an additional thing to do. It's a tool to allow us to do those things we want to do in the first place. It allows us to streamline and prioritize, where right now a lot of us, in all fairness, will run around and try to pick what to fix, right? Redzone is the focusing lens in which allows us to determine what to fix very quickly and focus our energies on that.
Can you talk about how you use the platform that you have to stay close to your workforce at this time and communicate sort of key things to them?
Traditionally, before Redzone, we know everyone's using the text messages, the phones, the emails, etc. But Redzone allows us to do some really new things. So I'm seeing live 24/7 what every machine is doing, where we're at. I'm actually able to dialogue and talk to my teams on third shift to see how they're doing, and they know that I see them and hear them, and if they need anything, I'm there, as well as every other supervisor. Video conferencing, that tool that we just upgraded with, that's a fantastic tool, especially since a lot of the team members are in remote work situations. So that helps us, again, stay live on the floor as well. And the communication is much more two-way, where we have the individuals on the floor, the production teams working with quality, working with the leads and or supervisors. So there's a much more dialogue across on all fronts.
We end up doing it monthly, but we send out what we call our monthly highlight. And that just goes through and kind of speaks to what is the topic of the month, or what is the topic of the month to come, and just kind of sets the stage. It allows the employee to kind of know through just a quick PDF document of what to expect. And then in addition to that, on a regular basis, we're posting videos, just quick 120-second videos that focus on rallying the troops and hoping to bring their spirits up a little bit and let them know what is the focus, what is kind of the goal for the week, all within a matter of 120 seconds. And so that's been a great resource add within the application.
I know both of you will be able to relate to this, and many people on the line be able to relate to this, but many of us have different tenures within the facility, different technical abilities, different languages perhaps, so there's different communication barriers that perhaps exist across the facilities. How have you seen this as a platform to bring everyone together? and align around a common goal?
A common one would be sometimes our workforce, there might be some ESL, English Second Language, or sometimes we're looking at a machine downtime and really they're looking for maintenance, but they really don't know what that part is, right? And I've been, have done that a few times. I don't know what that part is, so we'll take the picture, let's say this is broken or this is making a funny sound or whatever the case is. So those tools, a picture is worth 1,000 words, as we know. So when maintenance will get that text message, or I'll get that email and maybe in the off hour or something, I can look at that and make a decision when I go there, have an idea what it is, or I can communicate through the Redzone app, or a maintenance person go there and work on the line. But before that, sometimes a maintenance person would come to the line, figure out what was wrong, go back to the maintenance shop, get their tools, come back, and go back and forth, back and forth. Here, if they're able to get something as simple as a picture, a very simple tool, helps us get over the obstacles of ESLs or just good old-fashioned not knowing the name of the machine part, right? And that's okay. So we can take the picture, put the arrow on there, says this isn't working, and the maintenance can come over there and already have an idea what needs to be done. So that is definitely bridges a lot of hurdles for us.
Fantastic. Well, we've talked a little bit about the cultural change, the communication. We've touched on employee engagement. What about the results? There will be people that are listening to this going, yeah, but what impact has that actually had on the efficiency of the plant, the productivity, other metrics that you guys measure the business on within your world? So Dwayne, can you share some?
Well, sure. So I've been here about 16 months, and to give you a little bit of a scale, we're about a $250 million company in sales per year, give or take. And when I joined the company, of course, we weren't using Redzone at the time. We were about 8% EBITDA, and again, we're hitting 30% now, right? So if you can put the scales of that, and Redzone was really one of the pivotal points that helped us achieve that. And we created really what we call the circle of boom. So the circle of boom is really centered on the idea where we basically opened up the throughput, the velocity of the plant, to improve my inventory levels. And what had come in, we had about 60% on time and full and perfect, to James' point, on time and full and perfect. And now we're tracking about 99.5% right now. So that has a huge impact on our customer, our branded, the brick and mortars and the onliners, having them have an amount of faith and trust in what we're doing, that when they order something, they'll get it. Two, our internal fines. If there's other folks that go to the retailers who know that they're they may be a little overeager to fine us if there's a shortage or something. So those have gone down by about 90%. And when you look at the throughput as well, so I just crunched the numbers this morning. So in the time frame since this Redzone introduction, we have about 72% in manufacturing, 72% increase in productivity, and I have only about a 17% increase in labor cost, right? And also, if you look at my packaging sign, it's about 48%, 49% increase in productivity with about a 3% increase in labor hours as well. So it's Redzone has been pivotal for us to get these very real, very tangible gains. And so that wouldn't have been possible without our president, Andy Holberg, believing in Redzone, seeing what it can bring to the table and letting us run that course. And also by opening up the capacity, I allowed sales to create the circle of boom, which allows, because now they have the capacity and the throughput there, they're able to restore that trust with the consumers, with the customers and the consumers. And then also gain additional distribution. And with those monies, the additional monies, the circle of boom allows us to maybe spend a little more in building the brand through marketing, gain a little more distribution through the sales side, and allows me to make a few more of the widgets, right, as we say. And so a portion of that circle of boom, a lot of it goes to the house, of course. A little bit goes to the infrastructure, maybe sales, marketing, CapEx. And of course, some of it goes to the employees as well. So I was very happy last year that we were able to share some additional vacation times with the folks. We were able to have, a full bonus. The first time in as far as we can tell, recorded history, we had a full 100% payout of the bonus, which is absolutely fantastic for the organization. And again, this is really not just the Redzone. Of course, there's a whole team approach, but Redzone is one of those catalysts. It was that spark that let us allow us to fly and do and create that circle of boom. And the organization is still nonstop right now. So it's absolutely fantastic what we've been doing.
Well, incredible results, and congratulations to you and the team. And it's one thing to just look at an isolated metric like OEE, for example, but then to see that trickle through to the actual financials of the business that you talked about, the impact on EBIT, EBITDA. So you're saying you went from 8% to 32%?
Yep, exactly. So actually, in a few times, because of the EBITDA being much higher than budget, we're able to afford other monies to, say, a marketing team or a sales team for distribution or creating demand with the marketing team. So by using the Redzone tool, there is a direct impact to our CFOs and whatnot, and our sales and marketing teams as well. So they see definitely an impact of that. They may not be seeing the TVs, although they'll see them locally per se, but they really see definitely the final impact of their budgets being benefited, what we're able to do. So creating the cycle of boom, where we're able to reinvest in ourselves, reinvest in the tools that we have here, and allow us to do what we do well. All right.
Fantastic. And I love that idea of the circle of boom. And one element of that you talked about was giving back to the employees. And that really forms the part of the reward and recognition. And we'll often hear the phrase that rewarded behavior is repeated behavior. And that's a key part to employee engagement. So James, with that sort of in mind, what types of results have you seen here at Capstone, and how have you guys been able to then recognize the teams that have contributed to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, within the first 90 days of launching, saw a 49% uplift in OEE. And that was just one of those that was nice to see, especially considering, where we were at the time. Fast forward through the last couple of years that we've been going, and being a contract manufacturer, we're constantly looking at the variability of SKUs that we have. And so we do see some fluctuations between where we were at versus where we're at today. But the nice thing is, I think overall we're seeing a general increase or an uptick in that trend of OEE. Similar to Dwayne, we're seeing improved what we call on time to produce deliveries, and so we're getting the product ready for the customer when they're expected to have it ready. We're seeing decrease in labor costs, and so in conjunction with all of these, financial savings that we're really recognizing, we've actually over the past couple of years have created a star program for our associates, and so that's a certain number of stars that are allocated, and each star represents something different to the team. For instance, one of the stars this year that we're focusing on is how do we drive uptime? And we can track that information through Redzone, and we can trend where were we at versus where are we at today, specific to that availability component within Redzone, and say, are we running the machines more? And then in conjunction with that, that's just one of those vital few that we're focused on. And as they define those stars, then they get a certain allocation of money over a course of a quarter, and so we can give that money back to them.
Fantastic results on both fronts, and congratulations. I guess one thing the numbers that don't always tell though is the story of the people, the individuals on the shop floor behind contributing to those numbers. What we like to call at Redzone, your miracle workers. So I'd love to hear perhaps some personal stories of individuals that have just sort of stepped up, gone above and beyond, and have had a huge impact, and whether you've seen a personal transformation in them or they've had a significant contribution to specific goals. So Dwayne, you mentioned someone called Darwin. I couldn't forget that name because it sounds like he's gone through somewhat of an evolution of his own. So can you share a little bit more on Darwin?
Darwin is one of our absolutely rising stars, who is a poster child for taking Redzone and running with it. Absolutely extraordinary individual. He was a QC, started off a QC technician, QC lead. Now he's a senior lead, and he's definitely on the upward mobility. He's definitely on the right path. So when we introduced this, he actually took it to heart very quickly, saw the advantages of it, and started working with our coaches, and everything from helping input all our scale up from the front end of all our different formulations. We have over 300 formulations get uploaded, plus another 200 SKUs. So he was pivotal for that, but also spent a heck of a lot of time on the floor role modeling huddles, adding checks. For example, we saw the need for hand washing checks recently, for example. So we actually put that in right away, and he created that, with him and the team. I created those things right away. So adding other items and checks, working with the teams, and he helps to teach the folks how to sign off on the compliance piece as well. So Darwin has done absolutely fantastic. It's one of those folks that, he's going to be talking on this podcast pretty soon, I think. So he's absolutely a fantastic guy who's done phenomenally. And now under the leadership of Edsel, Ladonia, our Director of Quality, has done, again, she's took that team and really owned the Redzone production systems tool. So they've done very fantastic. Of course, there's numerous other folks as well too, but Darwin definitely has really stepped up to the plate.
Well, and as leaders, it's one of the most satisfying things, seeing people sort of realise their full potential, step up, get promoted into new positions, and we'll love hearing these stories. And are there any stories here of people that have suddenly risen through and you've identified talent or have had some career progression that perhaps that they may not have had the opportunity without the opportunity to share their ideas?
Absolutely. So I alluded to one earlier in regards to a temp associate that we hired on, and as soon as he helped us start kind of this maintenance launch and everything else, it was very evident that he was going to be a rising star. And so Jaden Thompson is one that wasn't a temp for very long. As soon as we saw the hunger in his eyes and the passion, we converted him on pretty quick. Tom Bonder, he's the one that I spoke to earlier in regards to he used to be the biggest critic. And now he's very active in Redzone. He's very passionate about the huddles, making sure that he's regularly communicating with the team. And then, like Dwayne said, there is just a slew of others that on a regular basis are in the application, chatting, communicating, appreciating, sending that recognition and building those relationships so that we can properly execute.
So Tom is someone that you've seen a shift, a transformation from, dare I say, a naysayer to somewhat of an advocate.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think's driven that for him?
I think, again, this was right out of the gate when we first started. It was, back in those days, it was the flavor of the month mentality. He's like, because he's been here a long time. And so he knows that, they're going to announce this and we're going to kind of do this for a couple months and then it's going to go away. And as we continued to stick with it, we had the help and support from Redzone to coach this in. And as we continued to preach it, utilize it, it was, this isn't going away and this is actually pretty cool. And it aligns with our strategic framework. It aligns with our vision, mission, and values.
What impact have you seen this culture change have on the retention of your workforce and perhaps the recruitment of additional talent in the area? I know Utah has been an incredibly difficult place to hire, lots of competition. What do you think now sets Capstone apart?
I happen to be looking back at a communication that was had a while ago with Redzone, and it was in one of the earlier phases. And what was interesting is Andy Hell, our QTS manager, actually brought up a couple stories in regards to associates that he used to have on his QTS team that decided to pursue other opportunities, had family changes or whatever else. And ironically, they heard about some of the changes that were going on, really specific to the role that they used to have where they were writing stuff down and doing all this stuff. And so we've started to see some influx of operators and others who have since gone down the road now are coming back saying, hey, something's different at Capstone.
I'm sure we'll have people that are listening to this and going, yeah, this all sounds great, but you haven't been in my plant. It's extremely complex. We have hundreds, if not thousands of SKUs and lots of different variability in our processes. What would your advice or suggestions be to people in that position?
So originally my first install was at a dietary supplement manufacturer, contract manufacturing. We had well over 1,400 different formulations. And of course, as contract manufacturing, as many as you know, that every contract manufacturer only gets the worst formulations that no one else can formulate, right? And I know the story because I lived it. But again, I'll testify to this every day of the week that we are not as unique as we think we are, in the sense that when you listen to the Redzone community, the different people in our peer group as well, we all are going through the same challenges, the same stories. The window dressing might be a little different, but what you find with the Redzone that by going and joining the community and participating in the community, you find that the stories and solutions are very similar. You find that the folks there really want to share the best practices, share the advantages they've learned. They want to celebrate your successes. And I usually don't regard my folks as other competitors. I just call them, peers in my Redzone journey. So in that essence, we have a really great community to join that'll help you along the way. Coaches are great there. You really need to look at and have that clean data integrity, because this is a really good exercise to help you with that as well.
Yeah, the one thing that I would add to that in regards to really the launch of this is I was kind of in the same boat when we first launched. It was like, oh man, this is going to be overwhelming. I'm going to have to go through these, 1,1600 SKUs, and we're going to have to one by one set them up. What's been really cool, or what was really nice about it, was Redzone has a system to help, and that's where they've got their coaches. They've got a process where you can pretty quickly go through those SKUs. You can get them uploaded into the application, and then really focus in on improving the data integrity. And so, while it may appear as overwhelming, it's really not. There's a process, there's a system that they have in place to help through that.
Yeah, and you both touched on the coaching element of that. How important do you believe that was to you both in terms of achieving the tremendous results that you both have?
I think the coaches I've had fantastic experiences with all the coaches. I think they all come from generally some different backgrounds, but generally they all know Redzone extremely well. They know lean concepts and SMED and TOC concepts extremely well. And ultimately, it's the coaches has been a great experience, but it's also the value of the coaches is also them understanding the audience. That when they're talking to me or a Lawrence or a James, we're obviously it's one dialogue. We're working on the production floor. It's a different dialogue. So making sure that they're able to adapt to that. And I have not seen anyone not being able to go vertically up and down. So that's been a great benefit for us. And every single one of them, I learned so much information on not just data and using Redzone, but managing people, lean manufacturing concepts, TOC, etc. So I would say 80-90% of the time is on the floor. That's working with the crews, practicing the huddles, the daily vital signs, having the weekly vitals, coaching everyone from on the floor to me. So everyone gets coached, and we all have different needs and at different levels. So I think the coaches have been very agile, very nimble, and able to adjust their training needs according to who the audience is. So that's been fantastic for us locally.
I would absolutely agree with Dwayne. I think it's been phenomenal to work with a number of different coaches throughout the whole process. They're well qualified and bring just a whole nother dynamic to the atmosphere and to the application.
You mentioned the community. What's the value of the Redzone community been to you?
So one of the things we had with some of the community events, actually in particular, a recent story, for example, it's a great community. Everyone is generally willing to share. We have a great team nearby, probably 20 minutes away, called Old Thompson. They make spices and whatnot. And absolutely fantastic team there who is killing it on Redzone and doing a fantastic job. So I was looking at some packaging equipment, for example, and I actually had, since knowing that they had used the same vendor I did, actually we had a little field trip and went over there for a couple hours, and we were able to share information not just on Redzone, but also their manufacturing strategy, some of their pandemic best practices, also some other automated equipment, and I was able to see it live on the floor with the team, and I've been over there actually a couple times. So the Redzone community has been absolutely fundamental, and actually because of that tour and seeing the equipment in operation, I picked a different vendor and actually got the PO already cut and it's already in there. So that was not always available when you're outside of this, something like a Redzone community. It would be very difficult to find someone to allow you into their shop, kind of kick the tires, so to speak. So that was available only because of a great relationship that Redzone helped leverage with us with Old Thompson and able to introduce us, and then we just kept that dialogue open afterwards. So for me, that has been absolutely fantastic to have another Redzone partner 20 minutes away.
Yeah, there's been a lot of networking that has really come through this, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know people through the Redzone platform, but then to Dwayne's point, really kind of sharing those best practices, and that's been a lot of fun.
Well, gentlemen, we're just about out of time. I know we could continue this conversation all morning, and some really interesting insights there on how you're both driving employee engagement and culture change. Thank you once again to Dwayne and James from Natrol and Capstone. This has been the Redzone Power Hour. You've heard from two fantastic companies here this morning, but there are also over 650 other food and nutraceutical and CPG manufacturers across North America using this approach. So if you'd like to learn more on how this might apply to your operations, then please reach out to us at rzsoftware.com. Until the next time, win the run, win the shift, win the day.